There are moments in life that feel like standing at a crossroads, or perhaps even on the edge of a cliff, where every instinct screams at you to make a move. Maybe you feel an overwhelming urge to push forward with all your might, to force a situation, to make things happen. Ebbs is no. Or perhaps the feeling is one of profound exhaustion and frustration, a deep weariness that whispers that the only sensible thing to do is walk away, abandon the struggle, and find relief somewhere else. We've all been there, haven't we? That place where the pressure to act, to decide, to resolve the tension is almost unbearable. It's a common human response to discomfort, to uncertainty, to pain. Our culture often celebrates decisive action, the go-getter mentality, the strength to know when to quit. And yet, in those very moments of intense pressure, when our emotions are running high and the path ahead seems shrouded in mist or fraught with peril, you might sense something else entirely. A quiet, persistent whisper that doesn't align with the urgency of your feelings. A sense that God isn't telling you to run forward or retreat completely. He's asking you to be still. This invitation to stillness, this divine instruction to pause, can feel counterintuitive, even frustrating. When you're confused, when you're tired, when you're genuinely unsure about what to do next, sitting still can feel like doing nothing. It can feel passive, unproductive, even weak. But often, that's precisely when God steps into the quiet space of our uncertainty and invites us into a divine pause. This pause isn't some form of punishment or a sign that you've been rejected or forgotten. Far from it. It is a sacred moment, a deliberate act of divine timing where God desires to accomplish something profound in you before He orchestrates the circumstances around you. Think about it. When we are in motion, constantly striving, pushing, reacting, our focus is outward. We're consumed by the external situation, the obstacles, the potential outcomes. But when God calls us to stillness, He redirects our gaze. He invites us inward. He uses these seasons of waiting, these periods of forced inactivity, to bring clarity that rushed action often obscures, to build strength we didn't know we lacked, and to foster a depth of spiritual growth that only happens in the quiet, often uncomfortable, soil of patience. While it may feel, on the surface, like absolutely nothing is happening, as if time is standing still, or you're stuck in neutral, the glorious truth is that God is anything but inactive. He is diligently, lovingly, and purposefully working behind the scenes. He is working in you. He is working for you. You might start to notice certain subtle, yet powerful, signs during these times. Signs that suggest the call to pause is not coming from fear, or laziness, or denial, but from a divine source. Perhaps your sense of inner peace, despite the external turmoil, doesn't completely abandon you. Maybe your prayer life, instead of diminishing, deepens, becoming more fervent and honest. Or perhaps your heart, against all logical reasoning and emotional impulse, keeps holding on to a flicker of hope or a core conviction. These are not signs of weakness or a refusal to face reality. They are, in fact, compelling evidence that God's hand is on you, and He is actively asking you not to make a permanent, potentially life-altering decision based solely on temporary, fleeting emotions. Instead of yielding to the powerful urge to rush headlong into closing a door, ending a chapter, or abandoning a difficult situation, God may be gently, patiently, and persistently leading you to step back, to surrender the need to control or fix things yourself, to pray more deeply, to listen more intently, and to surrender your timing to His perfect plan. The pause, therefore, is not the end of your story. It's often the essential, fertile ground where purpose is being quietly shaped, where deep healing is taking root in the hidden places of your heart, and where clarity, though not yet visible, is steadily making its way towards you. So how do you discern if this feeling of being stuck or unsure is God's divine invitation to be still? Here are 7 powerful signs He might be asking you to wait. Sign 1. You feel a deep, unmistakable inner nudge or sense to be still. Dosis. This is perhaps the most fundamental sign, the one that often initiates the process. It begins not as a loud command, but as a deep and quiet sense within your spirit that you are not supposed to make any major moves right now. It's a spiritual check, a gentle pulling back. It's beautifully captured in Psalm 46 and 10, which says, "Be still, and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth." This isn't just about physical stillness, it's about a stillness of the soul, a quiet surrender of our striving. When God is asking you to pause and not walk away from a situation, a relationship, a calling, or a challenge, this inner knowing is usually the starting point. It's a gentle, yet firm, tug to slow down, to cease your frantic efforts, to reflect deeply, and to consciously resist the powerful urge to rush into making significant decisions. This isn't the same as paralysis born of fear or the passive avoidance of responsibility. This divine stillness is an active spiritual state. It is a spiritual alert system, indicating that God is actively doing something in the unseen realm, something you cannot yet perceive with your natural eyes or understand with your current perspective. It's like the pause before a major shift in a symphony, where the silence is just as crucial to the music as the notes themselves. You might notice that when you try to ignore this nudge and force yourself to move forward on your own, to make that call, send that email, sign that paper, things feel awkward, forced, or deeply unsettled. There's a lack of peace, a sense that you are swimming against a hidden current. But when you choose to honor that inner prompting, when you intentionally sit still, wait, and trust, a profound and inexplicable peace often settles over you. This kind of peace is not something you conjure up through positive thinking or determined effort. It is a gift, something God sends as a divine confirmation that He is actively holding you in place, that you are right where you need to be for a specific, divine reason. This pause, this intentional stillness, often brings a level of clarity that only silence can truly deliver. In the noise of our anxieties, our fears, and the world's expectations, God's voice can be hard to discern. But when we quiet the external and internal clamor, when we remove the distractions and allow ourselves to simply be in His presence, God often speaks most clearly and loudly. If you find that your thoughts are chaotic and restless, your mind racing with possibilities, worries, and what-ifs, but deep within your spirit, there is a core of calm, a quiet assurance that you are in God's hands, then you are very likely exactly where God wants you to be for this season. That dissonance between a restless mind and a quiet spirit is a powerful indicator of divine instruction. It's a sign that your spirit is connected to the truth of God's sovereignty, even when your human mind is struggling to grasp the situation. Trust that spiritual peace, it's a signal from heaven. Sign into, you keep receiving profound lessons through this season of waiting. Also, when God is asking you to pause, He rarely leaves you idle. Instead, He often transforms your waiting room into a divine classroom. You might find that you are learning profound truths in unexpected ways. Every challenge, every difficult conversation, every seemingly frustrating delay, every unexpected interaction seems to carry a deeper meaning, a lesson intended specifically for you. You begin to see how your reactions, your emotional responses, your deeply ingrained habits, and even your decision-making patterns are being highlighted and shaped. it becomes increasingly clear that this season isn't arbitrary. It's not a punishment for something you did wrong. It is a deliberate, purposeful preparation for what God has next for you. Think about the lessons you might be receiving. Perhaps you're learning to control your tongue when you're frustrated. Maybe you're learning to extend grace to someone who has disappointed you, even when it's hard. You might be learning the importance of healthy boundaries, or confronting a long-held fear of failure or rejection. God often allows lessons to repeat themselves in different forms until the truth sinks in, and more importantly, until you start to respond differently. The old ways of reacting are no longer serving you, and the pause gives you the space and the time to learn new, godly responses. If you are noticing a tangible growth within you, becoming more patient than you were before, more genuinely forgiving, more honest with yourself and with God, less reactive and more thoughtful, that growth is not random. It is a divine curriculum unfolding in real time, a testament to the fact that God is actively working as in you. Proverbs 4:7 tells us, "Wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom, and in all you're getting, get understanding." The waiting season is often where we acquire true wisdom, not just head knowledge, but a deep, practical understanding of God's ways and our own hearts. God's pause always has a powerful purpose. He never leaves you sitting still just to waste your time, to delay your progress without reason, or to make you suffer needlessly. If you are learning more about who you truly are under pressure, how you genuinely love or fail to love, what your true motivations are, and what God expects of you in terms of character and faithfulness, then this pause is an active, dynamic classroom. It is designed to mature you, to refine you, and to equip you, not to sideline you or dismiss the situation you are in. The lessons learned in the waiting are often the most valuable, preparing you for the very thing you are waiting for. Sign 3. God keeps revealing things within you that need His refining touch. Sometimes, God asks you to pause, not because the external situation is wrong, but because there are things inside you that He wants to address and transform before He allows you to move forward, or before He resolves the situation around you. This sign is deeply personal and can be uncomfortable, as it involves introspection and facing hard truths about ourselves. As it says in 2 Corinthians 13:5, "Examine yourselves as to whether you are in the faith, test yourselves. Do you not know yourselves, that Jesus Christ is in you? Unless indeed you are disqualified." While that verse has a specific context, the principle of self-examination is vital in our walk with God. In a season of waiting, with fewer external distractions and a slowed pace, you may start seeing habits, fears, insecurities, negative thought patterns, or ungodly attitudes that you weren't fully aware were hindering your relationship with God, your relationships with others, or your overall spiritual growth. Instead of allowing you to continue blaming external circumstances or other people for your struggles, God redirects your focus inward. He shines His light into the hidden corners of your heart and reveals what needs His healing, His pruning, and His transformation. This refining process can be incredibly uncomfortable, like being in a spiritual furnace. It might involve confronting pride, impatience, unforgiveness, anxiety, self-pity, or a lack of faith. But it is absolutely necessary work. It's not about God making you feel guilty or condemned. It's about bringing awareness. You cannot expect to move forward into God's best for you, into healthy relationships, or into fulfilling callings, if you are operating from the wrong mindset, carrying unhealed wounds, or clinging to destructive patterns. God slows things down, bringing you into a season of stillness so you can take an honest, prayerful look at your heart and allow His grace to work the necessary changes within you. In this divine pause, God is diligently working on your inner healing, cultivating spiritual discipline, and strengthening your capacity to love correctly, to forgive freely, and to trust fully. It's not a rejection of who you are, it's a renovation of your spirit. The pause is God's loving way of preparing you, of helping you become the person you need to be, stronger, wiser, more Christ-like before He brings the clarity you seek, the restoration you long for, or the next season He has planned. He cares more about your character than your immediate comfort or convenience. Sign 4. God is intentionally building your patience through the waiting. The waiting is arguably one of the hardest disciplines in the Christian life, especially when the situation involves your deepest hopes, your most fervent prayers, or your aching heart. Every fiber of our being often rebels against it. But when God asks you to pause, it is almost always because He is stretching and strengthening your patience and endurance. Hebrews 10:36 speaks directly to this. For you have need of endurance, so that after you have done the will of God, you may receive the promise. Patience isn't just passively enduring, it's actively trusting and waiting with faith, while you are doing God's will in the present moment. God knows the promise He has given you, the outcome He intends, the breakthrough that is coming. But He also understands that the process of getting there must shape you, must prepare you, must build the capacity within you to handle what He is going to entrust to you. You may feel incredibly frustrated, weary, or just plain tired of waiting. You might question if God has forgotten you, or if the promise was ever real. But each day you choose to remain faithful in the waiting, each moment you choose to trust rather than despair, is building something invaluable in you: spiritual muscle, resilience, and a deeper reliance on Him. God does not overlook or ignore your faithfulness during this difficult time. He honors it by using the passage of time to mold your responses, refine your prayers, and deepen your level of trust, not just in the outcome, but in Him as the orchestrator of the outcome. When your character is being visibly strengthened, when you are becoming more resilient, more peaceful, more genuinely faithful even without seeing the desired result right away, that is a very strong sign that you are not meant to walk away yet. God is asking you to pause, to stay put, to continue cultivating these virtues until His perfect timing aligns with His perfect purpose for your situation. Patience is not a sign of idleness. It is often the most active form of faith. Sign 5. Your spirit is quiet and settled, even when your mind is restless. This sign is a continuation of the inner nudge mentioned earlier, but it's worth highlighting specifically because it's a common experience during God's pauses. When God asks you to be still, one of the clearest internal confirmations is that your spirit remains anchored and calm, even though your thoughts may be swirling in a tempest of questions, doubts, anxieties, and worst-case scenarios. Isaiah 32:17 provides insight. The work of righteousness will be peace, and the effect of righteousness, quietness and assurance forever. While this verse speaks of the peace that comes from living righteously, it also points to quietness and assurance as effects of God's presence and work. You might feel completely confused intellectually, your mind running through endless possibilities, wrestling with uncertainty, and grappling with the lack of a clear path forward. Yet, deep inside, beneath the mental turmoil, you experience a surprising and inexplicable quietness, a profound peace that simply does not match the confusion in your head. This stillness is God's way of holding you steady, anchoring you in His truth, and preserving your inner equilibrium. It's a supernatural peace that guards your heart and mind. Philippians 4:7. This peace doesn't mean you suddenly have all the answers or that the situation is magically resolved. It means that despite the lack of resolution or understanding, you are able to trust the one who does have all the answers and is in complete control. When God is communicating through this kind of internal peace, amidst external or mental chaos, He is telling you to stay steady, to remain anchored in your faith, and not to abandon the situation or calling that He has placed in your heart or life. You don't need full understanding to remain faithful. You just need to trust the one who understands everything. If your spirit is quiet and settled while your thoughts are wrestling and searching, then God is very likely guiding you to wait. That spiritual quietness is not accidental or a trick of the mind. It is a divine reassurance, a signal from heaven affirming that you are exactly where He needs you to be for this season, even when everything else feels uncertain and unresolved. Sign 6. Your faith is visibly strengthened in the waiting. Our waiting seasons are often the crucible where our faith is tested most severely. It's easy to have faith when things are going according to our plan or timeline. But when we are stuck, when progress stalls, and when the future is uncertain, that's when the rubber meets the road. And if, in the midst of this waiting, you find that your faith isn't weakening, but is actually growing stronger, deeper, and more resilient, then that is not a mere coincidence. It's a clear sign that God is actively using the delay, the uncertainty, and the discomfort to anchor your trust more firmly in Him and less in your circumstances, your abilities, or the visible evidence. James 1:3 reminds us, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. The testing of faith leads to patience, but the testing itself also reveals and strengthens the faith being tested. Instead of being tempted to walk away in despair or frustration, you might find yourself standing firmer in the promises God has given you, clinging more tightly to His word, and believing more strongly in His character, even when you can't see His hand at work. You may notice a deepening in your spiritual disciplines, praying more consistently, reading your Bible with greater intention and hunger, seeking out godly counsel, and leaning on Him with a level of dependence you haven't experienced before. This kind of spiritual growth during a period of perceived inactivity is not for nothing. It is powerful evidence that God is doing a profound work in you while everything around you seems to be standing still. The waiting isn't wasted time. It's a period of intense spiritual development. God doesn't just use your faith, He actively builds it. And often, the most significant faith building happens in the quiet, often uncomfortable, moments of stillness, silence, and simple obedience to His call to wait. If you are coming out of this period feeling more faithful, more anchored in Christ, and more trusting of His plan than when you started, it's a powerful sign that God is still very much active in your waiting. He isn't asking you to leave the situation. He's simply asking you to trust Him longer, to believe Him more fully, and to let Him solidify your faith for whatever lies ahead. Sign 7. God is protecting you from making decisions based purely on temporary emotion. Our emotions are powerful forces, and in moments of high stress, disappointment, anger, fear, or hurt, they can easily overwhelm our reason and lead us to make impulsive decisions that we later deeply regret. Proverbs 14:29 wisely states, "He who is slow to wrath has great understanding, but he who is impulsive exalts folly." God, in His infinite wisdom and love, will often ask you to pause, to be still, precisely when your emotions are at their most heightened state. He knows that decisions born solely out of intense, fleeting emotions rarely honor Him, serve our long-term good, or align with His perfect will. If you find yourself in a situation where you feel overwhelmed by anger, crippled by anxiety, consumed by fear, or deeply wounded by hurt, and simultaneously feel that inner check, that inability to move forward decisively, that pause might be God's divine protection. He is keeping you from acting rashly, from speaking words you cannot retract, from making choices that could cause significant damage to yourself or others. He desires for your choices to stem from wisdom, clarity, and a heart settled in Him, not from a temporary, volatile reaction to circumstances. When you obey that inner prompting to be still and not react impulsively, it provides a crucial opportunity for your heart to settle and your thoughts to calm. As your emotions begin to regulate, with God's help, you start to see the situation more clearly, hear God's voice more distinctly, and understand the bigger picture beyond the immediate emotional fog. God doesn't just stop you from acting. He shields you while He works, often behind the scenes, to shift circumstances, reveal truth, or prepare hearts, including your own. In so many cases, walking away from a difficult situation or relationship, purely in the heat of an emotional moment, only leads to more confusion, pain, and regret down the road. God's pause, His invitation to stillness, gives you the essential chance to calm your spirit, gain perspective, and ensure that when you do eventually act, it is in alignment with truth, wisdom, and God's will, rather than being dictated by hurt, anger, or fear. If you sense God holding you back, especially when your emotions are running high, it is likely because He is actively trying to protect the outcome, ensuring it is shaped by His healing and redemptive purposes, not by the temporary state of your wounded heart. To summarize, the call to be still, when every fiber of your being wants to move or flee, is a profound spiritual invitation. It's often in these seasons of waiting, guided by these specific signs, the inner nudge, the lessons learned, the inner work revealed, the patience built, the quiet spirit amidst a restless mind, the strengthened faith, and the protection from emotional impulse, that God does His deepest work within us. Embracing the pause is not passive surrender to circumstances, it is active surrender to God's sovereignty. It requires faith, humility, and a willingness to trust that God is working even when we cannot see it. The waiting is not a void, it is a vital space filled with God's presence and purpose. If you are experiencing these signs, take heart. You are not stuck, you are being prepared. You are not forgotten, you are being refined. You are not delayed, you are being timed perfectly by the Master of the universe. Trust His timing, embrace the stillness, and know deeply and truly that He is God, and He is working all things together for your good and His glory. If this message resonated with your heart today, and you found encouragement and clarity in exploring these signs of God's invitation to wait, I would be so grateful if you would take a moment to connect. Please consider liking this video, leaving a comment to share which of these signs spoke most powerfully to you in your current season, and subscribing to Pure Inspirational. Your engagement helps this message reach more people who might be navigating their own season of waiting, reminding them of God's presence, His perfect timing, and His purposeful work in their lives. Thank you for watching, and may you be deeply blessed as you continue to trust and wait on the Lord.